IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And today with us for a second time, we have Dr. Poonam Kage. And if you haven't heard the first episode, please go do listen to it because it's fantastic. It's all about parenting and how we can learn about parenting and how we should have our relationship with our children. Today, we're going to be going on a different topic. Dr. Poonam Kage is a parenting coach, a psychologist, and a mother. So, we're going to be talking about this whole concept of achievers and super achievers, because that is something that we see happening so often in the way that, are bringing up their kids. Kids nowadays have almost no time. They're busier than MDs and CEOs of companies. And I think that is something that we definitely need to address or talk about. So, Poonam, welcome to the Habit Coach podcast.
Thank you so much, Ashdin.
Poonam, I'm seeing like friends' kids, right? Okay. They are just bombarded by this tuition, that class, wo. Poor things, they'd have no time to think, breathe. And I remember as a kid, I used to look at the plant growing, looking at the tree. I used to look at all the faces that were there in the tiles. And I had just so much free time. What is happening now?
So, yes, I think this is like some sort of syndrome that we believe that if our child is busy, then we're doing something worthwhile is what really the belief is. And I believe that is so not true. It's so wrong, and I think that this all stems or roots out of, certain gaps that we had in our childhood, or maybe we felt that we were not good at certain thing. So, abhi mera bacha hai na, he'll be a superhero in this particular aspect. And then there are the neighbors who, are already in karate, ya fir skating. So my child will also do that. How can he not do that? So that becomes another goal. So there are some goals which are mine. Then there are some which are neighbors' goals, which get, into mine. And then there's a long list of all of these goals. And if you truly ask if they value that, I'm not sure if they really do. Does the child maybe value that? That also I'm not sure. So I think we need to focus on being intentional and mindful about what are we focusing on. Are we focusing on what is really essential and required for our kids? Or we're just doing it like the herd mentality, chalo abhi sab log coding kar rahe, to chalo coding kar lo. Now, does my child even understand or, have the talent or the bent or the interest in exploring? If that's the case, yes, please go ahead and, let them explore. It's a good exposure, I would say. And it's not that I'm against many other activities, but I believe ki life skills important hai. Social emotional skills are very important. But leaving that aside, we are teaching them some random stuff which I don't even know if it's going to be useful. And secondly, I don't even know if the child is enjoying. I think the first filter has to be that let the child explore and let him choose. A child doesn't have to be in 10 activities on a everyday basis. It's maddening. It's crazy. Imagine he cannot focus on one activity. Right? There are already 10 activities lined up for him just because the mother feels it's important for him to be a super achiever in every single thing. Right? So I believe that the super achiever connotation is very different. Like what I mean, raising a super achiever would be understanding my child's strengths, and helping him or her, boost the potential rather than putting him into 10, 20 activities and keeping them busy. In fact, my child today, she is in 6th and she doesn't have a single class. The only class that she attends is the Kathak classical dance, and that's it. And we do it together. So we enjoy it. So she's thoroughly invested and interested in that art form. And, classical takes a lot of, effort and patience. So I know that because of this entire extracurricular activity that she's working on, she's also building a lot of patience. Resilience, because she keeps failing at doing certain things which are required at that level. So that's something. Patience hai. Consistency is a huge thing when it comes to classical dancing, right? It's not like any other dance where you do some moves and you're okay if if you don't clear that particular exam. The classical dancing has phases and theory and practice. So all of these things, these skills are important for me. And that's why I chose. And I chose to explore it with my child. So I started doing it and I engaged her very smartly into that, saying that, you can just sit and watch. And if you like it, maybe you can start dancing. So she literally started dancing at that age. When she saw me dance, she looked at something she enjoyed, she got engaged into that music. And now she is, on her own in the 4th year. So you need to be very mindful about filters like, is my child understanding that? Is my child interested and invested? Is she willing to do it on a consistent basis? And then you can think about the future prospects and how it's going to add value. But just joining the herd mentality, ki sab log kar rahe, chalo, let's do it. That's something which is, as a parent, you're going in the wrong direction. And kids know only that much. And not all kids can actually, talk about what they feel. Most of them are, worried and anxious, and they don't want to really, they have this whole fear that, what if I tell my parents, they might feel, hurt, frustrated, angry. They have no clue. So therefore, they keep doing a lot of things which they are not really interested in. So that's something that, parents must check.
I love it. So, if I had to break this down, there's one part which is called exploration, which is where you let the child try out many different things.
Yes.
Right? If they don't like it, drop it. Correct? Yes. There will be something that will appeal to them and that they will pick up. It's just that you haven't necessarily found it yet. That is one aspect, which is exploring. The second aspect is that don't make them super busy. Make them super at achieving something. Right?
Yes.
Move them in that direction. Like you said, I think super achieving should not be a negative connotation. It should be something that is positive. But from a point of view of in a focused manner, it is not that if they don't do this, they will be left behind from everybody else. Right? Yes. It is not about, how competitive the world is. They have to know 3 languages, classical music, play 2 instruments, play 4-5 kinds of sports. That is not necessarily what you're talking about. Did I get this right?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's all about letting them explore. And then once that they're good at it, but they're lagging behind, they're not maybe practicing on a daily basis, because I know many parents keep complaining, ki Poonam dal to diya ise. She said that she will do it, but now she is not doing it. So that's something that, parents really need to identify and understand ki potential hai, but she is not doing it. So then what do? Then do you pull them out? Then no, you don't pull them out. You nudge them, you make it a part of their schedule, you help them, you support them, and you get it done strategically rather than making them leave that particular class because they chose it. And then there's always this sentence which works really well, okay, that Tisha, you chose to do this. I'm okay to drop it. Are you okay to drop it? Then it's like, no, I'm not okay. Then okay, if you're not okay to drop it, then what do you need to do? I need to practice. Okay, mama, I'll do that. So you really need to steer them where you want them, not completely based on your desire. But you have to check a point where the kids don't understand that they need to do this on a daily basis so that it becomes an art or a skill or a talent they can showcase later. That needs consistency, and you understand that. Because as a child, I was enrolled into Bharatanatyam dance. And at that point, I remember there was this Mowgli, which used to run on TV at that specific time slot. And I was so crazy about Mowgli, I actually dropped my Bharatanatyam. So as an adult and as a parent, today I realized, oh my God, what a silly thought and what a silly mindset I had at that point in time, that I actually dropped a talent that I could hone and, be good at. But it was too late, right? So I think parenting is also about understanding your own personal experiences and learning out of it, what went wrong, and now taking care of those and not letting that happen again. So that's something which I strictly follow with Tisha, where there are certain disciplinary things that we follow. So yes, there is all the fun and excitement and engaging stuff which happens on a Saturday, Sunday. But Monday to Friday ye karna hai. Uske baad wo time pass bhi karenge. But Monday to Friday is this, and this is how it will look like in your everyday life. Do you want to still go ahead with it? When she says a yes. Then I get it done from her. So that's the kind of discipline and a system, as I say, for every single thing. If you have a system, then it's just about, it's like like a table, if this, then that, if this, then that kind of thing. So you really know, you set the context and you set the natural consequences. Like, for example, many kids have this discipline issues and they feel that, yaar, mere bachche mein discipline bilkul nahi hai, Poonam, and what do I do next, So I think quick tips on how to handle disciplinary issues is that first, make it clear to your child why this is important for you. Like, for example, the child leaves the room without switching off the lights and the laptop on charging and all of that. Now, if you don't want your child to do that, you explain them why you don't want to do that. That's a very basic, simple, logical explanation to that, right?
I still do that.
The second thing that you have, Yeah, I know it happens. And then it's my daughter giving me the disciplinary 3 hours, and I'm like, Tisha. So parenting is also about accepting when you mess up. Okay, that's another thing. So yeah, so that's what you do. You explain it to them, and then you also set a natural consequence, saying that, you know what, next time you leave this room without, okay, you will not get access to this room, so that they start valuing and respecting what they have. Also, when you set disciplinary actions, it has to be relevant. Like, for example, you didn't do your studies or your homework or your project. Okay, so tonight you won't go to play. That's not going to work, because there's no relevance or association there, right? So maybe the setting of the context has to be, if you don't, then this is the score that you're going to get. And when your PTA meeting happens and your teacher is going to ask me, I'm going to tell her the truth that this is what happened. Right? So that's a natural consequence. And that's how you set the tone, saying ki ye nahi chalega, ye aise hi karna padega. And if you don't do this, then this is what happens, right? So that's something. Also, it has to be proportionate. Like, for example, a toddler spills water or a glass or some food plate, right? You can't expect. The natural consequence way would be that now you clean up this mess because you created it. But being a toddler, she doesn't know any better. I mean, she just created that mess, and maybe it was fun learning for her, right? So what you can do in such situations is, rather than scolding and yelling and getting frustrated, acknowledge ki ab ho chuka hai, and then give something so that, the child can also start putting stuff in the plate. Many a times the children don't want to do that. Then also it's okay. You just give a little nudge and a push and a smile, and you say, chalo, copy my behavior, and that's how you get them to do that. So your punishment, rather not even punishment, your discipline has to be associated or proportionate to the age. So age appropriate hona chahiye. You can't expect them to do and take care of the mess that they created, when they're 2.5 or 1.5. That's not going to happen. So that is something that, kids must be taught in terms of disciplining, at least. And this is something which sets the tone, not just in such kind of chores or things, but in general, in life. There's always that, yes, you can do this. When you're done with this, then you can move on to doing this, which is basically what you want. Uske pehle aapko jo karna hai, jo karana hai, wo pehle aap kara do. Then uske baad aata hai fun and engagement and the entertaining stuff. But step one is doing the work that matters.
But there's so much that's happening in their life, right? What are your tips on or habits on scheduling time for your children? Like there's studying that has to happen, and there's these extracurricular activities, and there's skill learning, then there's masti time, there's time with you, there's time with their friends. It's full khichdi. How should people start scheduling this?
So I think the most important things in life for them at that stage is proper sleep and rest, relaxation, which is not taken into account, which I believe the moment they're sleeping, they're like, "Arey, chalo, utho, padho, ye karo, wo karo." I've literally seen parents dragging their kids out of the bed when they're having this amazing power nap in the afternoon for their class, right? So always check. These are the few things which are very, very important for their physical well-being, which is the rest, the relaxation, and the sleep, right? They have to sleep at 10. Okay, according to me, actually, ideally to 9:30 hona chahiye, but 10 is also chalo de diya, because the kids are awake till 11, 12. Ashton, I'm like shocked. Yes. Whenever I conduct these courses and we have a WhatsApp group and they're supposed to post their homework, I have seen their worksheets coming in at 11:30 and 12, and I'm like wondering what are they doing this late. So that that has to be maintained, and these routines have to be set by the parents. Ideally, according to me, I straight head to the bedroom at 9:45. We have this alarm, so Tisha and I, we know that it's now time to move to the bedroom and do our night regimes and rituals together. But for many parents who cannot manage that, okay, then it is the setting of the tone. Again, you'll have to say that, what, I have lots of work and I cannot afford to sleep right now. But what I can do is maybe I can be with you for 20 minutes. Maybe there can be a storytelling session or whatever that works for the child based on the age. And then you put the child to bed, and that should work for him. So every child or every person has a different schedule that they will be following. Correct. Right? And that might not be possible in joint families, because I live in a nuclear family and my husband is in the merchant navy. So he's sailing for most times. So it's very easy for me, because jo hum decide karte hai, we collaborate, we decide and we do it. So there is no other third party or distraction that works. But for many parents, they say that, Poonam, we have joint families and our in-laws who want to watch the TV, and we can't say ki, chalo abhi 10 baj gaye, to you switch off. So in that sense, I think in such kind of settings, then you have to set the tone for the child, saying that this is your routine, this is your pattern, and this is how you will have to follow so that you wake up. So sleeping on time, like early to bed, and early to rise. And I think physical exercise is a must for every single child. Like looking at the obesity rate and the junk food that they consume on a daily basis, it's crazy. Like as a child, I don't remember obesity being like a pandemic or, being like a challenge. But today I see, every third child suffers from obesity and everyone wants pizzas and burgers and French fries all the time. So I think that's one thing that, requires a limit. Ki jo hoga one meal on Saturday and this small portion. So that also, should become a part. So I think physical wellness should become a very important component of the child growth and development, and physical exercise. And it could be anything. It could be playing football or yoga. All of these things are very, very important, and they should make the time. Rather, the parents should ensure that the kids go down to play. Like Tisha plays 2 hours, irrespective of whether she has exams or projects or assignments. So I ensure that she goes out. Sometimes she is bored, to step out. But I say, no, nothing doing, chalo niche. Like, let's go. Maybe I can have a walk and you can play. So that's how I get her to get outside the house, and start playing. And because today we have this online sessions going on for kids, everyone is just sitting in one place. So I think physical exercise is a must, sleep is a must, good nutrition is a must. And what else? I believe life skills is a must. I think life skills training and social emotional learning is a big missing element or a component, because at the academic level, you're exposed to, your child is exposed to various subjects. So they know the formulas and all really well. But do they know how to communicate with others, right? Can they explore people with a certain level of expertise and learn something from them? Can they negotiate? Can they build a team? Can they become a leader when it's required? Can they become a team member when required? So all of these skills are completely missing. And if you look at universities, international universities like UK and US, they have all of this integrated and it's taken very, very seriously, right? So in fact, I'm writing a book on that, and I have interviewed all the educators, right? And all of them feel ki, yes, it is the need of the hour and social emotional learning has to be integrated in your daily curriculum. Now, that might not be possible at the school level simply because the school has so many other subjects to take care of. But I believe as parents, you can take up the responsibility of introducing the social emotional learning, right? Now, social emotional learning in simple words is the EQ. So right now, parents are focused about the IQ. And hence, itne tuitions, itne classes, because at the end of the day, brother, at the end of the 10th academic year, they want an amazing score so that they can choose the career. Right? So he might be able to, choose medicine or engineering. But what if he can't do all of these things which are so required for any career? In fact, I would say life skills, social emotional skills, all of these skills are extremely important. So do you want your child to be a winner and successful and a super achiever in life? Then you got to focus on these, not on coding and, other things which are not so important. Because I'll tell you what, I believe everything is important, but we have only 24 hours. And inside of those 24 hours, if we have only 4 or 5 hours, what is it that you would like your child to invest in? Then I would say they should pick life skills like cooking, sweeping, washing machine kaise lagana hai. So enroll them into all of these things because they feel that this is not their job. Now imagine if kids had to go outside and study at some external, university, which is basically living in a hostel. How are they going to cook? And then you'll say, oh my God, my bachai doesn't know anything. Now what do I do? So I believe that everything has to be tied to a goal, which is a larger goal, which is a long-term goal, not something which is very short-term. Right now, we are all about quick fix solutions. Hey, Poonam, I don't have that much of time here. You give me a quick fix solution for this. And I'm like, I can give it to you, but the problem will keep coming back to you. So we need to focus on the long term. What is it that you want for your kids? And I believe that we should focus around habits which are going to take care of their health, take care of their happiness and their mental well-being, right? And will help them become productive and successful whatever they choose in terms of career. Right now, we are being very specific about ki, he's going to choose medicine. So uske liye mujhe ye skill set. You don't know what your child is going to land up choosing, right? So give them the skills which are very futuristic. Ki kuch bhi kar le. I know that he can cook, he can swim, he can drive, he can cycle, he can do all of these things. He can manage his emotions. He's resilient, he's confident. So these are the skill sets which we should focus on. So that is something that should become a part of their daily routine. So yoga and meditation should be a compulsory subject according to me. If not in school, then the parents must take it up. And I believe that parents must do it with them. Because many times kids feel कि ये क्या है आप तो नहीं कर रहे हो, why am I supposed to do that? I mean, why should I? There's no reason why I should be invested when you don't see any value in that. So when you sit with your child and do it, it'll happen. Then you can make it happen because then you both are in that. So you will end up doing it. So that's very important.
It's so interesting that you started off by talking about sleep, which is such an important thing, right? Then you spoke about physical exercise.
Yes.
And we're talking about people who are getting into, we want our kids to become super achievers.
Yes.
Right? Notice the studying didn't even appear in the first three categories.
Yes.
Right? Sleep, you said, movement, you said, and then you said life skills. Yes. And this is such an important thing because did you hear the podcast that I created called Multi-Potentialite?
I must have, but I don't really remember the details yet.
You must listen to it because that's exactly what we talk about. We're saying that why create, or your skill set is obviously for you, in one direction. So don't be a specialist. Be as much of a generalist as possible because you have no idea when different ideas are going to come together and mix, merge. And that is where creativity actually forms. And in order to make your child unique, and which is already unique, but make them stand out in what they're doing.
Right.
And create that, making them this multi-potentialite, lots of potential in different aspects is very, very important.
Absolutely.
So I'm loving the fact that you spoke about these things first. And then whatever is left over, study. Right?
Yes.
But, Poonam, how do we make children study better? Like, I'll give you 2 points. You can answer them, in whichever way. One is, how do you make a child, so like, just going up through school, study better, right? Where a parent's role is to stand, very important. But then what happens when they start going to college? Right? When they start going later, because lots of people write into me saying that, I don't know what to do. I just don't feel like studying. I have my exams in 2 weeks. I don't feel like studying. My habits are not there. I'm useless. I'm hopeless. I'm like this. I'm like that.
Right.
What are the things that people should focus on in studying? Are there habits that can make them like super study people? Because I was horrible at studying. Right? I used to fail almost every subject that I was in when I was in school. So how should people think about studying?
I think it starts with how you enroll the kids to this entire study game. If it's early on, then it's easier because then it's really what you put across to the child. Right now, it comes a lot out of worry and fear and anxiety and pressure. And that's not the way it works, not just with the study aspect, but with anything. I see a lot of fear-based parenting, and there's a lot of fear and worry and anxiety. Ki agar fail hua to, I'm like, why are you thinking in that direction? And why would he fail? Right? Because I have seen so many kids doing really well in life now, but academically they were horrible. So I think I think even I was a part of that, by the way, till 10.
Every term I had 3 red lines. Red lines were the failures, right? And at our time, it was 35 marks was passing. 35 also I didn't get.
Absolutely. And that was an SSC board. Were you from the SSC board?
I was in ICSE.
Okay. Oh my God. ICSE stuff. SSC is like really plain simple. Okay. And there also 35 tha and udhar bhi. We failed. So it was like miserable.
There was this one time when I got more in Hindi than I got in English. Right? I'm a Parsi, right? So my Hindi sucks, which is why we don't have a Hindi podcast yet. So I failed English but passed Hindi. So it's like, what is going on? I think my parents must have been poor thing. I don't know what I put them through. I got 4 out of 100 once in Marathi.
Oh my God.
So that is so I am the worst person to talk about studying too. But,
but I think this is like a proof, right? So academically, just because you didn't do well in a subject does not mean that you're not going to be successful and happy.
Oh, not at all. Absolutely.
Yes. So I believe we attach too much value and meaning to that score. And of course, I'm a very academic driven person, okay? Because I have a PhD and, if I say that I don't believe in studying, I would be lying. I do believe in studying and I do believe in researching and exploring. But the method of studying for me is very, very different. So I like to enroll kids into learning process of how learning is done or how learning really happens, what goes inside of your brain, how the neurotransmitters work, and what do the neurons do. When you give them an explanation of all of these things, ki this is really the system that's working. Ab is system ko kaam karane ke liye, what is it that you have to do? Then you have to have good sleep, you have to have good nutrition. This is what you need to have. This is how you need to study. So this is how you enroll them and take them like a step-by-step process.
This is so interesting because I remember my teachers used to say that Ashdin knows everything. He just doesn't write anything in his exam, right? And the way that I used to think about it, I probably still remember more now about what I studied than my friends would. But I just never wrote for my exams because I don't know. I think as a kid, there was this block in my mind that says that why do they want to know what I know?
Okay.
Right? Like, why should I write down in my exam paper what I
yes,
know?
Just so that
why should they test me? Correct. Like
Absolutely.
it was that was exactly the thing that was a pain. But now when I read about mitochondria, I remember everything that I wrote about when I was in school.
Absolutely. And I also think a lot has to do with the academic environment that we have designed. And unfortunately, as parents, we can't do much about that. Like you can't make it a fun and learning environment all the time with all the subjects.
Yep.
So at such times, you really have to build in a schedule saying that, this is what we'll have to do. Now, at the end of the week or the month, this is what we need to achieve. And that goal has to be related to whatever the subjects and, the upcoming project assignment, jo kuch bhi ho. Also, it has to take into consideration the capacity and the IQ of the child. Like, for example, if your child is not so good with math, okay, sitting in one place and solving 5 or rather attempting to solve 5 sums is also a huge achievement, right? So you've got to acknowledge that. So it has to be step by step and it has to be in increasing complexity, but all of that will happen when you start right. So you establish all of these things for your child saying that, this is something we'll have to do. Also, many kids are not invested in learning the subjects that are there because they don't find meaning in the subjects. They find history and Hindi and geography so boring. Another way to put it across and make it a little interesting for kids is, what do you want to be in life? Okay, so you want to be a surgeon or whatever that they say. Okay, they talk about. So you have to show them the end goal. Ki aapko ye banna hai na, but at this stage na, you will have to par karo ye. You will have to clear this so that you reach there. So I do understand that you don't see any meaning. Let's try and understand what can do together to make it more fun and engaging. Also, you can enroll and invest in mentors. Okay, because mentors have a very different take on the way kids should do, or the way anyone for that matter should process information, the way you take knowledge, the way you rehearse, repeat, whatever that it is. Okay, so I believe that engaging with a mentor or a coach works really well because then they're talking about the long-term goals. So they are not focusing on कि अभी मुझे क्या चाहिए. अच्छा आपको ये बनना ना उसके लिए करना पड़ेगा. So you just have to look at it like one step. So 7th standard is just one step for me. It is difficult, yes. But to go where I want to go, I have to, go on the 8th.
Correct.
So that's one way to look at it. And that is something that's worked for my daughter when things haven't worked really well for a certain academic, where she had a block with regards to maybe math or Hindi or whichever. It works really well. So that is something that can be a part of.
What did you want to become when you grew up?
I wanted to become multiple things. Okay, I'm like multi-passionate. So I wanted to become an art director. Then I also would love to follow fashion designing. But I also had some attraction with regards to psychology because my mother comes from the psychology background and she studied at Uparel and she majored in psychology. So I had heard a lot of this psychology stuff, from my mother. So it was really intriguing and interesting. And, I was not really as invested in FIJC, which is 11th, which is just an introduction. But
Correct.
My professors, Ashdin, were so awesome. She was awesome. Like she was the one who literally, mentored me so well that by the end of FIJC, I had decided and made up my mind that I'm going to pursue psychology. So that's the impact a mentor can have if they are really. So I think it also depends on how you introduce the subject and the topic. Can you weave around a story? Can you share a personal experience related to that? If you infuse all of these things when you're teaching something, then I think the kids are far more interested and want to know more about, rather than Q&A, ye karke aa jao and this is the score that you get and stuff like that.
Lovely. My mom too was a psychologist. She used to head the psych department at Sophia College in Bombay.
Oh, okay. That's
and child
nice.
psychologist, that too. So,
okay.
So, Poonam, it's so interesting that we were talking about these things. And when we're talking about high achievers, this one is this creating the schedule, making sure that they're getting their sleep properly, making sure that they're exercising, making sure that you're teaching them where they want to achieve, how they're thinking about their own goals, breaking
Right.
that down into activities that they necessarily need to do now to be able to get there, creating
Yes.
that kind of environment. And I
Yes.
think one last point that I want to talk about in particular is not forcing what you wanted to become onto your child, right? I
Yes.
see this as a big, big thing. It is not about making your child a mini me,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
It is about letting your child become a mini that child, right? That
Yes.
child is not a smaller version of you. That child is its own individual being, and allowing that to grow, blossom, and turn into something that might completely surprise you is something so
Absolutely.
important. You might have been fantastic at studies, doesn't mean that that your child will be.
Yes, yeah, that happens a lot, by the way, because then the expectations are really high. कि अरे मैं तो ऐसी थी. I was so awesome. I was so well planned. I was so scheduled, and I completed all my assignments. But your child might not. He might not really enjoy that. They might not be really engaged in the classroom. So yeah, you have to really accept, acknowledge, and then you can find a solution for that. And frankly, there are strategies for every single thing, and every single thing can be tackled effectively. There is
Lovely.
nothing like कि अब मैं क्या करूं, like now what? No, ऐसे कुछ नहीं है. There's always a way out, and not necessary that it's going to resonate with what you feel or believe is important. But objectively, I think it would be good and appropriate and effective for the child. So that is something that you again need to focus on. What's good for my child? What's going to work best for him is like a filter that you should be constantly, filtering your
Working
thoughts
with.
from.
Love it. Love it. Poonam, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing these thoughts with us. Creating these small habits for children, I think, are fantastic because ultimately they are what our future is going to be, that they are what our society is going to become,
Yes.
right? And that's what mankind is going to evolve into. So
Absolutely.
it's such a big, big, important discussion topic. Poonam, how can people get in touch with you, continue seeing your work?
Okay, so they can check me out on the YouTube. So my YouTube channel name is Dr. Poonam Kage. I'm also on Insta. Again, the same handle. It's Dr. Poonam Kage, where I, share everyday tips and tricks and strategies to do with intentional parenting.
Lovely. Thank you, Poonam, for coming on the Habit Coach podcast.
Thank you so much, Ashdin. It was lovely.
My pleasure. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome180.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Storytel and thewholetruthfoods.com. So, great week on the network. Number of really, really interesting shows for you guys to check out. Here are a couple of the ones that I would like to highlight for you. Check out This Round Is On Me. Gauri Devi Dayal talks to her husband Jay Yusuf about mixing business and pleasure. They're the husband and wife business partners at Food Matters Company. Give it a shot. Really fun show. On Nankari, they speak about chaat, the queen of the street foods. A fun episode. They canvass the beauty and romance of street food, its cultural importance in a city, and they also discuss the unfortunate harassment that street vendors sometimes go through. On Paisa Vaisa, we had Madhuchanda. They joined Anupam talking about the budget and the different aspects of it. Storytellers and Storytellers feature Shreyansh Pandey, creator of Kulak, a great conversation and some interesting insights into facilitating and nurturing writers. Do check that out. On Thale Harate, the Kannada podcast, Mansi Prasad spoke to Pawan Srinath about the history and appreciation of Indian music. It's a really interesting conversation. They discuss classical music and how it evolved in India, what are the various musical instruments and how they developed. Really, really fun, interesting stuff. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Hey, I'm Zarina, your peak performance coach, leadership coach, and life coach. And I'm here to unleash that power within you with your weekly dose of mantras and empowerment. Tune in to Monday Mantras every Monday for your quick fix and the Empowering series with Zarina Poonawala every Thursday for riveting real-life stories. You can catch us on the IVM Podcast website app, or wherever you get your podcast from.